Episode 1. The Silent Melody. Some people live in houses. Some live in cities, surrounded by noise, people, laughter. But Min-jae? He lived in silence. Not the kind of silence that comes when the world is asleep. His silence was louder than any sound. Min-jae didn't have a home. At least, not in the way people think. His home was a small studio, tucked away in a forgotten alley of Seoul. A place where the walls were thin, the light flickered, and the air smelled of old vinyl and stale coffee. But it was quiet. And for Min-jae, quiet was safe. The studio wasn't just where he recorded his songs. It was where he hid, from the world, from his past, from himself. The walls were covered in scraps of paper, unfinished lyrics, scribbled notes, and photos with the faces torn out. A single mattress sat in the corner, barely touched. His guitar leaned against the wall, its strings gathering dust. But the microphone? That was the only thing he trusted. Min-jae was famous, though no one knew his name. His voice floated through the speakers of cafes, taxis, and bedrooms across the country. Millions of people listened to him. But no one knew the face behind the music. And that's exactly how he wanted it. Because fame meant being seen. And being seen meant opening the door to a past he never wanted to remember. His family tried to reach out. They called. They texted. They even showed up outside the studio. But Min-jae never answered. Because letting them in meant opening the door to the past. And the past? It was better off buried. There was only one person Min-jae didn't push away. Kim Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon was the only link Min-jae had left to the outside world. He was loud where Min-jae was quiet, warm where Min-jae was cold. But he never pushed. He never asked for more than Min-jae could give. Ji-hoon knew where Min-jae lived. Ji-hoon knew who Min-jae really was, the voice behind the music that everyone loved. But he never told anyone, not even Haun. Haun was the unexpected part of Min-jae's carefully controlled life. She was Ji-hoon's friend first. And Min-jae only tolerated her because of that. But Haun? She was like sunlight trying to slip through a closed window. Haun came from a small seaside village. She wasn't like the other girls at the university, polished, confident, always knowing the right thing to say. She was quiet, but not in the way Min-jae was. Her quiet was gentle, innocent. City girls didn't like her much. They called her boring behind her back, laughed at the way she dressed, at the soft accent she couldn't quite shake. But Ji-hoon didn't care about any of that. They met during a group assignment in the first week of university. While everyone else ignored Haun, Ji-hoon noticed her. Her kindness. Her honesty. The way she smiled like she still believed the world was good. Since then, they were best friends. And where Ji-hoon went, Haun followed. Which meant, where Ji-hoon went, Min-jae had to follow too. And that's how the three of them became an unlikely trio. Even if Min-jae wished they weren't. It was autumn when it all started. The air was crisp, the sky a soft gray, and the leaves on campus crunched under their feet like whispers of forgotten promises. They were sitting in a small cafe near the university. Ji-hoon was laughing about something, a bad professor, maybe a failed assignment. Min-jae wasn't listening. Haun was listening to the latest hit song of Midnight Jay released 1 month ago. But she didn't know it belonged to the guy sitting across from her in class, the one with tired eyes and a habit of disappearing when things got too loud. She just thought it was beautiful. A voice that sounded like it had been broken and stitched back together. A voice that carried sadness in every note. But Min-jae? He just stared out the window, pretending he didn't notice the world around him. Pretending he didn't notice her. And then, for the first time, Haun spoke. Min-jae, why do you always look like you're somewhere else? Her voice was soft, curious. Not judgmental. Not pushy. Min-jae didn't look up. Didn't answer. Because silence was easier. Silence was safe. But Ji-hoon just chuckled, breaking the tension. That's just Min-jae. He likes his space. Right, bro? Min-jae finally lifted his eyes, meeting Haun's gaze for just a second. Then he muttered, I just don't like talking. But Haun wasn't the type to give up. She didn't push. Didn't pry. But she showed up. Every day. In the library. In the hallways between classes. Always by Ji-hoon's side. And slowly, by Min-jae's side too. But no matter how many coffees they shared or how many quiet walks home they took, Haun never knew where Min-jae lived. She never asked. And Min-jae never told. Because his studio wasn't just a place. It was a wall. A barrier between him and the world he didn't want to be part of. At night, when the world outside his studio quieted down, Min-jae would pick up his guitar. His fingers moved on their own, finding chords he didn't have to think about. The lyrics? They were already there. I lost you in the quiet, where words forgot to stay. He recorded the song in one take. His voice was low, almost a whisper, like he was singing to someone who wasn't there anymore. When it was done, he uploaded it. No name, no face, just the music. By morning, it had thousands of plays. By noon, it was on the front page of every streaming app. But no one knew the face behind the voice. Except Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon always knew. But then, something happened. One evening, Min-jae found himself at the university library. He didn't usually stay out this late. But the studio felt too small that day, too heavy with memories. That's when he saw Haun. She was sitting alone by the window, her head resting on her arms, a soft smile on her lips. And in her ears? Headphones. Min-jae's heart stopped. Because he recognized the song. His song. She was listening to him. And she didn't even know it. For a second, Min-jae thought about telling her. About leaning over and whispering, "That's my voice." But he didn't. Because what if she started looking at him like everyone else did? What if she saw the sadness in his songs and thought she could fix him? Never. It was better this way. Better if she never knew. "Min-jae," she said one night, as they walked together, the streetlights casting soft shadows on the pavement. "Do you ever feel like music can say things we're too afraid to?" Min-jae didn't answer right away. But then, for the first time in a long time, he looked at her. Really looked at her. And he whispered, "Yeah, I think it's the only thing that can." That was the first time Min-jae realized. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. But just when things started to feel normal. When Haun's presence didn't feel so suffocating. And the silence didn't feel so heavy. The past came knocking. Because some songs don't fade. And some stories? They're just waiting to be told.
Echoes in the dark.